Hello, my beautiful friends. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm Lauren of Lauren Jean, and I am really excited about a shift happening on my channel. I really want to see if I can challenge myself to upload once a week. I just love this hobby and I would really love to just continue it. I'm not gonna put a crazy amount of pressure on myself just because I do have two girls that I am homeschooling. I just really want to see if that's even possible. It might turn into an every other week thing. You're on this journey with me as well, but I thought that for my second week, because I posted my books I want to read, like classic books that I want to read last Saturday, or today, but you know about it last Saturday. I just want to talk about the books that I'm reading, chat a little bit, books that I finished, and also take you along to the bookstore, kind of do like a little mini vlog, because I do need to take some books to the library, which I forgot inside my house, so I need to go back and get those. I also want to take you to the bookstore because I really want to find the 1989 version of Anne of Green Gables miniseries, because as you will hear about in a second, I read Anne of Green Gables and I'm obsessed with it. Is it my all-time favorite book? Like, of all time? Maybe. We'll chat about that in a second. So I wanted to take you to Half Price Books. I also wanted to run to my local, like, smaller bookstore to see if they have the next book in the Anne of Avonlea, I think is the next one in the Anne of Green Gables series, in the version that I am reading them in. So we'll just see if they have it. If not, we'll just have fun. Let's chat about the books that I am currently reading / have read. So it's January, obviously, of 2025. I just read Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, and wow, what a special reading experience. I don't know. If you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen me weeping, bawling my eyes out. Well, not really weeping. It was like the after effects of me weeping. I don't know. It's hard for me to express how I felt about this book because I felt like it was such a special reading experience for me. When I started reading it, I loved her writing style. I thought it was so fun. I adored Anne right off the bat. Like, she is so funny and bold and very talkative, which I've heard people saying they found Anne really annoying, but by the end of the book, she's grown on you or whatever. But I loved Anne from the jump. Like, I love her. And I feel like I connected to her on a soul level. I felt like Anne was a real person, along with every single character in this book. By the end of the book, if you know, you know, but I had to tell I like out loud had to say, Lauren, these are not real people. Because I was feeling like they were. It was just one of those special moments in your reading life when you read a book that you connect to so deeply. You just love in every way. I loved her writing style. I'm really not one for overly descriptive portrayals, I guess, of nature. I love a good description of what's around someone, but let me tell you, when I say that I ate up L.M. Montgomery's paragraphs of descriptions of the land around where Anne is talking about, she is in love with Green Gables, and it's so clear and it's so obvious, but the way she describes it is so poetical and beautiful, and I loved it. It didn't just go on and on and on and on and on and on and on, which I appreciated. It was just right for me. The faith in this book was so surprising to me. You know, being a classic, I figured there would be some faith talks or, you know, about it. Especially, I do know the story. I actually played Anne of Green Gables in 6th grade. I was young Anne, and then my older sister played older Anne in our school play. And it was so fun. It was like the funnest. I remember getting to whack Gilbert over the head with a chalkboard. It was like a fake chalkboard, but it was just the best time ever. It was just a lot of fun. And so I'm familiar with the story, but reading the book and the faith elements. Anne was so honest in her look at pastors and church and faith and prayer, and I am obsessed with it. I loved it because she's so honest and raw and real, and she was saying like, oh my gosh, there's so many lines that maybe I'll tell you a few lines when I do my January wrap up. Just her look at it was so true. And it's even Marilla, who is Anne's adoptive mom, I guess, because if you don't know the story, Anne accidentally gets adopted by Marilla and Matthew. They're a brother and sister. They wanted a boy to help on the farm, but they were sent a girl by accident. Or providence, was it? This book was so good. Like, so good. It's so endearing. I'm so surprised at how much I love this book. I knew I would like it because it's a classic for a reason, you know, but I'm obsessed with it now. So just the way that Anne looks at her world, the kind of rose-colored glasses that she has, but very honest looking at kind of why do we do this stuff? She was born an orphan, and so she's had a very hard upbringing, which she's not too sad about. Like, that's just what she has known. That's her life experience. And so to come to Green Gables, it feels like such a precious gift to her. And so she just takes in everything, and she finds kindred spirits along the way. And even her talking about what a kindred spirit is, how there was one part where Anne was saying to Marilla or Matthew, I think it's to Marilla, that you can't open up your heart to everyone because not everyone is a kindred spirit. And I was like, that right there. I loved it. There's so much of this book. I'm just like, yes, Anne, I just love you. I feel like Ellen Montgomery is really a poet. I love that she had given us these novels, you know. I'm so excited to continue on. So I'm not gonna keep gushing about Anne of Green Gables, even though I want to. I could literally sit here and tell you so much that I loved about this. I think one more thing. I think another reason why I deeply related to Anne was I'm not an orphan. I didn't grow up an orphan. So in that way, I can't relate to her. But as a child, I was a little bit weird. I was very romantic in the way I saw the world, and like I would think about the trees and how they looked, and this book reminded me a lot of spending time out with my grandparents, especially my papa. Anne and Matthew really reminded me of me and my papa. He just was so endeared to her. He even says he wouldn't trade Anne for a dozen boys. And my papa always says, I wouldn't trade you for 3 boys and a dog. And so like even that, I was like, but my papa would always, actually he never mentioned this to me as a child, but he told my husband. He's never said it to me, but he told Ben one time that girl was a little strange. She would just go out and talk to the horses all day and like lay down in the field and look up at the sky. And truly, those were some of my most at peace moments of my childhood because I felt really safe, and my childhood otherwise was pretty chaotic and not too, I was safe, but like it was just chaotic. And so those moments where I could just be me, anyways, so I feel like I connected to Anne on a deep level in those ways. Makes me want to go see the Lake of Shining Waters and all the places that were described. Maybe I will someday. So yeah, okay, stop gushing, Lauren. Maybe you're not interested. I'll put time markers just in case you're not interested in hearing me talk about Anne of Green Gables, but I loved her. I loved it. It's just, I think it is my favorite book of all time now. So there's that. Also, I am in the middle of a lot of books, so I wanted to chat a little bit about those. So I have started The Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. So my mother-in-law saw the show. I believe there is a show about Magpie Murders, and then the following book, Moonflower Murders or something like that. And she was like raving about it. I told her that I have the book. And so she was so sweet and bought me the second book in the series because I had the first one for Christmas. I needed to read it. And I've been wanting to read that book for so long. I think I only have like 3 hours left in the audiobook. This is such an interesting novel. So we're following, well, not really following. The very first like chapter is about this woman who is an editor for a publishing house, and she gets this novel, what do they call it? Manuscript from this author who's very famous. He's kind of like an Agatha Christie type writer who has his next novel out. It's kind of like he has this detective who solves cases, and there's like a million books in the series and everyone loves his books. And so the next one she has, and she's like settling in to read his next novel. And so then the book doesn't just skim over what the novel's about. It like goes into the novel. So you're reading the manuscript as kind of like you're the editor, if that makes sense. And so it goes into this story of this detective. It's set in the 50s, something like that. There's this gruesome murder that takes place. There's actually 2 murders that take place. I'm not going to spoil anything, but the editor in chapter 1 realizes that not everything is on the up and up, because it seems like what's happening in the novel is actually a mirror of what's happening in real life. It's really good. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's super creative. I'm very interested. I'm almost done with that. I started Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. This is not one that I put on my classics I want to read soonish video, because I didn't really think it was going to be on my list for a long time. The reason why I picked it up is because Felicia Masonheimer, who is a theologian, she is such an amazing woman and such a well of knowledge in the Lord, like in scripture, but also I love what she's doing because she is also having a book club this year. I don't know if this is the first year she's done it. I know she's done the like Bible reading plan. I'm not sure if you can join the book club. I'll try to link something if you can down below in the description, but I'm pretty sure she closes it after a certain amount of time in January. Anyways, but I joined and the first book that we're reading is Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy, and I'm barely into this book. It's very descriptive of the landscape, which I think is interesting to juxtapose Ellen Montgomery and Thomas Hardy. It's very beautiful. I know Thomas Hardy is a poet at heart, but he, like at the time, you couldn't really survive on just writing poetry, so he wrote novels, but it was very poetical in the way that he would. Is poetical a word, or is that just a word that Anne says in Anne of Green Gables? I don't know, but it is very poetical. I don't know much about this one. I do think that it's about the provincial life. It's set in England. I'm like in the first 2 chapters, so I'm kind of going into this blindly, but so far we've come across a farmer, Farmer Oak, who I think is like 28 and kind of looking for a wife. He comes across this woman who he calls vain, but then I think he's going to end up falling in love with her. So I really don't know anything else. But so far there have been some really beautiful lines in this book. I will keep you updated on that one when I have more thoughts, because I just don't have any more. Some of the descriptions have been lost on me, or like I kind of like am glazing over of like, what? Because sometimes when you have too much description of landscape, I'm like, or too poetical a way of speaking about it, I just am like, what are you even saying? You know, am I the only one? I'm reading that one. And then I have started the Brothers Karamazov, or Karamazov, by Fyodor Dostoevsky. And I talked about this one in my classics video, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I am not very far into it, but in case you don't know what this is about, it's about this father and his 3 sons. You know from the beginning that one of them ends up murdering the father. So it's like a legal book, or like a courtroom book, I think, eventually. But also there's a lot of conversations about good and evil and right and wrong, all the things. So I'm very, very, very excited to continue on with that. This is probably going to be a very slow read for me because I want to read it with my eyeballs and I don't have a lot of time to do that in my life. So it's probably going to be read over a few months, and maybe I'll just update you in these videos of how I'm feeling about it or what's going on, without spoilers, of course. But I'm also in the middle, I haven't picked this book up in a long time, but I am in the middle of The Will of the Many by James Islington. This book is very interesting. It's a fantasy novel, and it's following our main character, Vic, I believe. You know from the beginning that he is from royalty. There's kind of this kingdom situation. All these kingdoms have fallen except for one. Basically, if you were in one of those kingdoms, or definitely in the royal family, you would be murdered. So he has to kind of go in hiding as a peasant, basically, as an orphan, into this kingdom. And things happen, and he ends up going to a school. It's like for the uppity ups in this kingdom, basically, which I love. I love the school aspect. I think that it kind of lost me, like it maybe just got slow. I don't know, but I am really enjoying it. I have been thinking about this book. I need to listen to more of it because I am listening to it on audiobook with all these other books. That one's kind of the last tier. Oh, one more book. This is why these videos are going to be coming in handy, because I have so many books that I'm reading at one time. Okay, The Life of a Mood Reader. But I am also reading The Life Impossible by Matt Haig. I got this through my library. This is for my in-person book club. It's very interesting so far. I think I'm only like 30 pages in. So far, I'm liking it. It's very accessible and easy to read. We'll see if I ended up really enjoying it, but there's like a letter at the very beginning of this book. It's written to an old teacher, so this was like a student of this teacher, and he's saying like, I'm really going through it. Any advice or any words of wisdom would be great. And so this teacher decides to write him this story of like what's happened to her in her life. It's a letter, but you're being told the story as if you're the person who wrote first, if that makes sense, the student. It's very unique in that way. This teacher is like in her 70s. She's very alone. She's very lonely and gets this unexpected news that takes her across the world to Ibiza, where she's unexpectedly inherited a house. And that's all I know. I've never read a Matt Haig before, so if you've read this one, let me know what you feel without spoilers. Okay, so those are the books that I'm reading and my like weekly update. I'm gonna run and get my library books that I need to return. Let's go to the library. Let's go to the bookstores. Sounds like a good day to me. friends. Okay, I thought that it would be fun to show you what kind of books I've gotten lately. This isn't all from the trip to the bookstores that you saw, but I wanted to share a little book haul with you. I'm not going to go into like all the synopses in depth, but I'm just going to tell you what I know about them. I also wanted to give you a reading update because I DNF'd The Impossible Life by Matt Haig. That is a really, really weird book, and not in a good way. I was really, really bored with it, and it was making me feel weird. Like sometimes when I pick up a book, it makes me feel certain ways, like melancholy or sad or depressed or whatever, and so I pay attention to that just because that can really affect me, and I don't want to be feeling what the book is trying to make me feel, if that makes sense. And I was feeling really down when I was reading it. So your girl put it down, but I looked up reviews because I was like, where is this even going? What? So bizarre. Such a bizarre premise and book. I can't really like go into it without doing spoilers, but if you want to know spoilers, just go look up the 1-star reviews on Goodreads and you will find your information there. From the beginning, I kind of had felt like it was gonna go into like new agey stuff, and I'm not interested in reading that, and I don't want to read a book, fiction or nonfiction, about that. And it did. So I'll just say that in case you care about that. It was really bizarre. I wasn't having a good time. I kept reading it because I was like, well, maybe it'll pick up or change or whatever. And I was like, let me just go look up reviews of what people have said about it. And it's so bizarre. And not in a good way, because sometimes I like a little bit of a weird premise. I'm interested in weird books sometimes, but not like that. So, and the fact that it was written to, the whole book is written to a student that emails her telling her he's having a hard time, and then she decides to tell him this crazy bizarre story. And honestly, it felt a lot like Matt Haig was trying to be really deep and really intellectual and emotional in random parts of the book, and it just bugged me. I don't like it when a book is trying to do that, especially the whole time. So yeah, that was a no for me. I don't know if Matt Haig's gonna be for me, because The Midnight Library, I feel like, is definitely his most beloved work. Even that, the premise of it sounds like it would not be good for me to read, so maybe he's not for me. But you know, I finished Anne. I am making my way through Far from the Madding Crowd. It's good when I'm reading it. I need to not just listen to the audiobook. I'm learning, especially with that author. What is his name? Hardy. Thomas Hardy? Whatever. Hardy. Because he's so poetic in the way he's writing, and so sometimes I'm like, what did you just say? But when I sit and read it with my eyes, it's really enjoyable. So I'll just say that. I'm picking up on little lines that I wouldn't have picked up on had it just been audio, and it's funny. There are a lot of biblical references. A man is really sad and he says that he's about to live his ecclesiastical life or something like that, and I think that's hilarious if you know Ecclesiastes. And so anyways, there's some really good little gems in there, so I am enjoying that. It's pretty slow, but that's okay. I want to take classics slowly. Thought I'd give you a little book haul of books I did buy that day, but then also books that I've just acquired since after Christmas, because I have. The first one is a nonfiction that I read the first chapter in and devoured it. Okay, I haven't read the whole thing, but I'm so excited to revisit this. It's called Living in Wonder by Rod Dreher. This one, Caitlin from Pride and Paper Bag told me about. Basically, it's talking about Christianity today and how removed from experience it is with the Holy Spirit. I think that we in America especially, and maybe England, I don't really know, but definitely in the American church have separated out the Spirit from God and Christianity, and you just can't do that. And God is a weird God. Like, he's weird. And he gives you weird experiences when you are seeking him, because he's showing you who he is. And it's talking a lot about how there is a spiritual realm Like, that exists. And I think especially in America, I think maybe that is changing. People are realizing, like, even in the new age, they're realizing, hey, there's more than just this material physical world. There is a spiritual world that exists. Like I said, I'm only one chapter in, but I'm already so interested in it. This man is actually Orthodox Christian, like a Orthodox Christian, is that what you say? I think that it's really beneficial to hear from all kinds of people and look at the scripture for yourself, but then also hearing different perspectives can bring new meaning and new light. Not new meaning, but just a different perspective on something that maybe you haven't learned about or haven't thought about, and I think that's beneficial. So I'm really enjoying this so far. I also got a nonfiction called The Wager by David Gran. Killer of the Flower Moon. He's the same author. I didn't realize that. Okay, that's really interesting. This is a real story, tale of a shipwreck, mutiny, and murder. I don't know anything about this other than I've heard it's like reading a fiction book, only it really happened, and it's super, super, super good. The next, I guess I got a few nonfiction. I didn't realize that I had gotten a few. It's called The Reading Life by C.S. Lewis. This is the joy of seeing new worlds through others' eyes. I started this on my Kindle through the library, and it was so good that I found this at Half Price Books. I've been looking for it because it is kind of expensive just to go buy. It's like $20. This is all about stories and the importance of them and his thoughts on that. So I'm excited to have this and to finish reading it. I probably reread it and make notes in it as I go, but there's that. I got a lot of nonfiction. Okay, the next one is We Who Wrestle with God by Jordan Peterson. I'm so interested in Jordan Peterson and like what God is doing in him. I think it's so cool. So really excited to read this. It's Perceptions of the Divine. I don't know much, and this is a chunky little book. Basically, this book looks at biblical accounts that stabilize, inspire, and unite us. Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, Noah, Tower of Babel, Abraham's terrible adventure, and the epic of Moses and the Israelites. I think his perspective is so interesting because he was an atheist, or I don't know if he would say he's an atheist anymore. God is doing a lot in him, and he's super interested in the Bible. It's just really interesting to hear his deep thoughts, I guess, deep thoughts on God and the Bible. And so I'm really excited to read this and see what he has to say. Obviously, that's going to take me a while, and he's such a deep thinker that I don't know how long this is going to take me, but I am excited to try my hand at a Jordan Peterson book. I guess rolling on the nonfiction train, I did get Confessions by St. Augustine. I have a version of this, but I tried to start reading it and I was struggling to understand what it was saying. And so I think it was the translation that was the problem. So this is like the old Penguin Classic version, translated by R.S. Pine Coffin. I started reading it and it was super clear and I understood what it was saying. So I'm very, very interested in reading this book. St. Augustine was one of the founding fathers, I guess, of our faith. He was Catholic, definitely one of the first theologians, I would say, of our faith. So a lot has been built off of him and his work, but I think it's really awesome because he was a heathen, as he self-proclaims. I love how God got him. Like God's love changed St. Augustine, and I think that's awesome. So it says his task was twofold: to explain to himself the significance of his conversion to Christianity, and to do so in terms that would convince his readers that this was indeed the one true faith. So I am really excited to read this. On to the next. I got A Tale of Two Cities. This is not nonfiction, this is fiction, by Charles Dickens. I don't own any Dickens other than A Christmas Story? No, that's a movie. What is it? What is it? Whatever. The Scrooge one. What is it? I can't remember. My brain. I keep thinking A Christmas Story, but isn't that the movie? With the bunny suit? Anyways, I don't know anything about this, but I have heard, the only thing I know is that a lot of people say this is one of their more favorite work of him. He intimidates me because I know his books are very long. This one's not so long. I'm just intimidated. I don't know. I feel like I don't know if I'll like his work, but I guess the only way to know that is to try to read his work, right? So I got this at Half Price Books for $4. So I'm really happy about that. And it's in really good condition. So yay, Half Price Books. I did get The Listening House by Mabel Seeley. This is an author who wrote in the 30s. So I think like 1938 was when this was published or something of that nature. 1938. So in the golden age of mysteries, and I just am really excited to try other golden age mystery writers other than Agatha Christie. Your girl loves Agatha Christie, but some others in that camp. I don't know much about this story, but I do love the cover. I think it's real cool. It seems really awesome that her stuff is like, this is a reprint of her original work, so must be good if it's getting a reprint, right? This next one is one that I have read and absolutely loved. I never owned, I don't think I ever owned the copy, but I hadn't owned the copy in recent years, and that is The Decagon House Murders by Yukito Ayatsuji. This is a golden age mystery writer set in the same time of Agatha Christie, or maybe a little bit after, but he is Japanese. And so he is a well-known Japanese mystery author, and I'm so excited to be reading more from him. He has many of his works coming out that are being translated into English from Japanese. So this is the first one that I read, and then there's one that has like a mask on it, which I'm very excited to read that one. This one is so good because it does give you a lot of "and then there were none" feels. Like, it's very much a lot like that. There are students that end up staying on this isolated island in this decagon shaped house, and one by one they end up being murdered. And so it's so good, and this is super fun because the names of the students, they have nicknames because they're in this like classic murder mystery club, like a book club sort of, or maybe a writer's club or something like that at their college, at their university. So they go by their nicknames, and their nicknames are people who are classic mystery writers, like Agatha is one. I'm just really, really happy to own this. This is probably one of my favorite mysteries, and it was just so good and so much fun. The atmosphere in this one is so good. Next, I got The Inferno by Dante. Who am I? I don't know. This is The Inferno. If you don't know about this, it's like a big old poem. It was originally written, I'm pretty sure it was written in Italian, but it's been translated, and I've heard this is a pretty good version to try if you want to try to read this. I will say I started this when I bought it, and it's going to be one I need extra resources to understand, but I'm really interested in it. Like, the effects of sin and what it can do to us and the separation that it causes between us and God. I'm just interested to know. And I know this was such a formative and pivotal piece of work that it's affected a lot of our culture and literature and art. So I'm excited about this one. So the next one I started, and I am loving it. It is Narrative of Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth was a slave. She was emancipated at the end of her life, or like when she was 40, I think. But wow. It's so good so far. I'm not very far into it. I'm like that far in, but I'm taking my time, and if you have an opportunity to read this, I feel like it would be really worth your time. She basically just talks about her life and what happened to her, her parents, her siblings. Oh my gosh, it's heartbreaking. For instance, there's this part where she's talking about how manipulative it all was because she was a Christian. She is a Christian. But looking back at her life, she would say, like, the slave owners took so much time to teach us to not steal or to not take things that weren't ours. But then the hypocrisy of that, of you're trying to teach morality when you own a person. You know what I mean? Just the realities of it, just so sad and literally just gut-wrenching. But I think it's gonna be, it is already been worth my time, and I think it's gonna be worth yours. Definitely an important one to try to find. I'm sure your library probably has it, but whew, I'm loving it. She actually was illiterate. She spoke only Dutch, but then came to teach herself English and then became a very powerful orator. So she spoke up for women's rights. I love it. I love reading strong women's stories, and she is definitely one that I want to know about. It's amazing that she kept her faith. I'll just say that. But that shows that it's genuine faith, because it was Jesus, not an institution or the church or man, wisdom. It was Jesus who saved her. You know what I'm saying? So, okay. I just told you guys that I've had the hardest time finding this poet's work, and then I found it at my half-price books. I was so excited. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. This is just like selected poems, and the cover is dirty, but that's okay. I'm just excited to try my hand at his work. If you didn't know, I'm pretty sure he was a poet around the Civil War era and had a really hard life. His wife died really tragically. There's a movie about his life called I Heard the Bells. I really highly recommend that movie. It's so sad, but really good, and just shows the tragedy of his life, but how the Lord brought him through it. So anyways, I'm excited to read his work. Those are all the books that I have purchased recently. Like I said, I didn't buy all of those the other day, but I'm excited to have them. I'm very intrigued on what my reading will do this year, like what kind of books I'll be reading. I feel like the fact that I just bought 4 or 5 nonfiction books tells you a lot about where my reading is going, plus classics. Okay, it feels like there's a movement in me to like a deeper well, if that makes sense. I want to be drinking from a deeper well, and the deepest well is Jesus, which I do want to eventually tell you about, like what Bible study I'm doing, all of that, because I want to share stuff like that on my channel as well. But that won't be for today. That'll probably be next time you see me. But let me know if you like this kind of video. I feel like this is the easiest content for me to get out to you. Just kind of updating you on what I'm reading and not feeling pressure to finish a book in a video, but telling you my thoughts along the way. And then if you want to see my final reviews on books, I will link my Fable down below. I was on Goodreads, and I still have all my stuff on Goodreads, but I'm moving over towards Fable because I like the format way better. The platform is so much easier to use, and it's just better all the way around. So there are some things I miss about Goodreads, but overall, I'm really liking Fable. So if you want to see my final reviews and it's not on a video, I will link that so you can go see what I have to say about them. But I really appreciate you coming along with me today, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Speaking of a deeper well, I've been thinking about that concept a lot, and so I just pray that you will find living water, and that is Jesus. And that is the well that you drink from and get satisfied in, and everything else would come out of that, and that he would transform you by his love and show you his love for maybe the first time. I just pray that that would be a reality in your life. So anyways, until next time, my friends, I will see you in my next bookish video. Bye!